Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Urvashi Sharma, Associate Professor, Department of Journalism and Mass Communication from Jagannath University, Jaipur. Today's session we'll be focusing on editorial policy, what does it mean, and its need and importance. So let's begin with the session. Let us first understand what do we mean by editorial policy. Editorial policies refers to the guidelines and policy statements set forth by the editors or the editorial board of a publication. The editorial policy is the set of guidelines by which the news organization operates. It includes news organization's attitude towards the community and aids editors in making editorial decisions. So it is basically the guidelines or the principles which are laid down by the editors or the publishers or the editorial board of a publication house, which they expect the reporters and the editors to follow in order to come up with a uniform style of reporting and editing, and it helps the organization to develop the attitude and the personality of the organization or the publication. Application. Editorial policies help to maintain uniformity in writing style of the content, the manner in which the photographs, graphics, and infographics are to be arranged in a story, the style of accrediting the sources. How accrediting the sources means how do we name the source, how do we give credit to the source, the words to be avoided and used, and styles of writing the headline. So let us here, for an example, look at the editorial policy of Times of India, which is one of the leading newspapers in India. So the first paragraph, the ideal first paragraph of a news story for Times of India, the guideline which has been laid is should not exceed more than 60 words, and it should be a pack of 5 W's and 1 H. Now what are 5 W's and 1 H? What, where, when, who, why, and how. For example, if we look at an example here, the Indian Unity Concert organized by XYZ Society was held at Unity Theatre, Seattle on Saturday, January 11th at 6 p.m. It was attended by 52,000 spectators and featured a 2-hour long cultural program which was followed by a fete comprising of stalls put up by local community of the non-Indian residents, which is NRIs. Celebrities attending the event included Hrithik Roshan, Priyanka Chopra, and highlights included a dance performance by them. Next, the second para will continue with more details about the event in order of importance, which has already been laid in the lead or the first paragraph. For example, who presided over the event, what else the event or the program included, what was the objective of the program, can be included in the second paragraph. The rest of the copy, whatever remains to be said, can follow in the next few paragraphs. The maximum length of the whole copy, including the paragraph, should not exceed more than 350 to 400 words, even though there's no minimum word limit. Now, Editors Guild of India. The Editors Guild of India was founded in 1978 with a twin objective of protecting press freedom and for raising the standards of editorial readership of newspapers and magazines. Eminent editors of the day felt that the lack of an organized forum of editors was one of the reasons for the sustained suppression of press freedom during emergency. The Editors Guild took up the issue of abuse of press freedom by Parliament and executive and campaigned hard for restoring the freedom of press and other freedoms which had been taken away during the amendments to the Constitution, executive orders and judicial procurements. The freedom to report of proceedings of Parliament, Firoz Gandhi Act, which was taken away in 1976, was restored. The Editors Guild continued to take up threats of press freedom when the government of Tamil Nadu and Bihar attempted to bring decorin defamation law. Similarly, when the central government proposed an even more harsher Anti-Defamation Act in 1986, the Editors Guild led the nationwide protest, which forced the executive to shun its plan. In 2001, when then government brought the Prevention of Terrorism Ordinance in, it had provisions like preventive detention on the basis of mere suspicion of journalists. The Editors Guild protested vigorously and assured that when the ordinance was converted into an act of parliament, these threats to press freedoms were not there. The threat to media freedom from non-government sources has been resisted strongly by the Editors Guild, especially in militancy-affected regions of North, East and Northeast India. At the same time, the Editors Guild has been striving for improving standard of newspaper editors. It has bought a code of ethics of editors. Whenever there are complaints from editors of harassment from those in authority, the Editors Guild investigates and recommends action to the concerned governments and institutions. When there are large-scale allegations of media bias during Gujarat riots, the Editors Guild deputed a fact-finding team to Gujarat, investigated the complaints and circulated the findings widely. A code of practice for journalists was adopted by General Body of Editors Guild of India at a meeting held in New Delhi on 30th August 2002. Now, why a is required in the first place? Journalists resist any kind of code for their profession as it is something repugnant to the freedom of expression. By a good code imposes no fetters, it may only flag some pitfalls discovered by those who have gone before so that those who follow may anticipate and avoid them. That way, useful guidelines will emerge and freedom will grow without running into aberrations. It may not be a mere coincidence that journalist has progressed most in those countries which also have evolved such codes diligently. That is why this code has been named Code of Practice and not the Code of Conduct. Print and electronic media capture news as it breaks, but they also are recorders of change. It will be odd if they were to show reluctance to record the changes that take place in their own field. Journalists must take note of changes and profits from precedents, and in doing so, they must sift the more relevant and useful from the less relevant because no code can be universal or everlasting. All occupations must benefit from the experience for avoiding wrong practices which might have crept in, because such undesirable practices become settled habits. Since journalism is a profession where its product is put together on a minute or hourly basis, mistakes are best seen from a distance from the rush of the events. A code is an index of what is seen in the way to be desirable or otherwise. It may be recurrence of the past mistakes less likely and expands the scope of error-free innovation in the future. That is why the code is adopted by the Editors Guild of India that draws liberally from an existing pre-prepared by the Britain Society of Editors, while at the same time the members of the guild have been equally liberal in modifying the British code in the light of India's own experience. Much of the code is addressed to media workers in the field and on the desk. This is where the rush of work makes the habit of correct judgment a more useful aid to both speed and safety. But it is also addressed to editors upon whom rests the responsibility of inculcating these habits in their colleagues in circumstances which have special augularities in India. Among all the countries which cherish freedom of press, India has maximum overlap between two entities which are often, though not always, correctly regarded as adversaries, the government of the day and the media. The overlap is extensive, sometimes troublesome for such media whose owners and managers have interests which live in the ambivalent proximity of the political powers of the day. The interaction between the government and the owners or the managers does not always make life easy for editors of such media. Therefore, in addition to formulating a code of practice, an organization like Editors Guild should help to promote such institutions as can shield the editor from incitement effects of interaction between the political power holders and the owners or the managers. Faithful observance of the code of practice monitored by guild and similar organizations will certainly improve the climate. The credentials of the media. The fact that the media is guided by self-imposed code strengthens its credentials for demanding protection of their right to receive and impart information. Media organizations and journalists would be strengthened further if media ensured more scrupulously any action which would even remotely suggest that, in exercising the right to receive and impart information, they were beholden to special interests and groups for perks and favors, and were thereby allowing the judgment to be swayed. Particularly relevant in this respect are such favors as invitations for foreign visits and travel, whether from governments, industrial and commercial organizations or other centers of power and patronage. It might be difficult to forego them entirely because in that case less affluent amongst the media might not be able to provide even unbiased coverage to many events, but three kinds of precautions should be taken. First, the better of media should set an example by providing self-supporting coverage. Second, where there is a choice between accepting offers of such facilities or denying suitable coverage to the reader or viewer, the media concerned should acknowledge that such facilities have been offered and accepted. Third, the offer should be made directly to the editor, leaving it to him to decide whom to depute for the coverage to keep it free from extraneous considerations. The editor's domain. As the ultimate custodian of the personality of the paper or the channel he edits, the editor rightly gets all the blame and the credit. But four aspects of his role stand out the most. The hardest to define, but nevertheless essential, is that the publication must maintain and promote high standards of good taste. Publication or electronic channel may also aim at entertaining its customers in addition to informing them. The more the mainstream media shift towards the kind of entertainment which was once the stock in trade of glossies, the less they will be able to claim privileges in the name of freedom of the press. The other three aspects on the role of editors are easier to explain. Maintaining the credibility of publication or electronic channel, whatever, if professed beliefs, stands or roles, the publication or electronic channel can maintain them only to the extent it sustains its credibility for presenting facts honestly and commenting on them fairly, without any bias. Intention, misstatement of facts, and biased comments are not only the enemies of credibility, sensationalism is another because it distorts the perspective and meaning of what is reported. The publication or electronic channel may gain attention and popularity one day, but practiced over a period of time, sensationalism undermines the public's confidence in the editorial judgment of publication or electronic channel. Accuracy. Respect for accuracy is a better prop of popularity than sensationalism. It also serves better the people's right to know. That right implies that the people must be given the facts first, unmixed with comments and value judgment. There must be a place for the latter as well, but separately from the narration of facts, preferably in the space or time clearly set aside for comment, but at least separated from the facts in news, items, or bulletins, even if it has to be within the same time or space. Reliable facts should take precedence over conjecture and implied comments in presentation of news. The only enhances the editor's capacity and his obligation to resist suppression of facts along with his peers and organizations like Editors Guild. One part of this obligation is to resist the laws requiring disclosures of sources except where clearly higher cause intervenes. But it is also part of editor's obligation to ensure that firstly, he lends its full weight to the functioning of peer organizations by actively participating in them. Secondly, he publishes or broadcasts fairly and fully any proceedings of the organization which relate to any inquiry into his own or his publication or channel's conduct. Thirdly, he publishes correction of incorrect reports and apologies whenever an apology is called for. And fourthly, no member of his staff allows personal interest or any favors done to him to color his work for the publication or channel. More than that, it is also editor's obligation to inculcate respect for all such obligation in the minds of the staff of the publication or channel. Much of the work of the staff has to be done at the time when editor is not readily accessible for consultation and they have to fall back on their own judgment. Therefore, their own standard must be harmonized with those of the editor and must be as finely honed as his. On way of promoting this harmony is by editors making it standard practice to discuss with the staff the rights and wrongs of his own and their decision in specific cases. These considerations are important all the time, get all the more so at times of internal and international conflicts, particularly in a country like India, which is situated in a sensitive neighborhood and in the arena of many conflicting interests, domestic and external, of competing ideas about the rights of society and the individual and the right relating to gender, class, caste, religion, and community. The staff's domain. Particularly important in this respect is the role of news editor, chief sub-editor, along with their colleagues on the desk, a role which has unfortunately tended to fade, more so when the field staff is glorified by personal bylines in the print media and face on the screen in electronic media. But important of the role of news editor and chief sub-editor has only increased on account of these factors. All matter of publication or telecast passes through the hands of those who man the desk. On the one hand, they are less exposed to the rush of events and pressures in the field and contact with interested persuaders, and on the other, they have or should have time and resources to check data with references. Therefore, unless their own judgment fails them given in the given time frame they have for thought, they can better ensure that the publication or channel against the errors. They are the safety net that catches mistake which may slip through the hurried hands of the field staff. They verify the facts and weed out inaccuracies from the field reports with the help of adequate reference libraries, which the publication or the channel must maintain. Conjuncture should not be allowed to masquerade as facts. Segregate fact from direct or implied comments therein and put the facts in the space or time meant for fact, confine comments to the space or time meant for them, or identify it as comment even if it has to be accommodated alongside the fact. They measure the right to publish against the relevant public interest before according supremacy to the former. They weed out unsubstantiated allegation or innuendos which are not essential to the story or retain them only after measuring their defamatory potential. They give fair opportunity to the aggrieved party to reply or contradict within reasonable limits. Where apology is called for, they offer it readily, frankly, and with dignity. Uh, should proceedings of defamation follow, they cover them fairly and with due regard for law. They avoid undue publicity to personal affairs of personalities if public interest is not clearly at stake. But if it is, they pursue the matter with diligence and without fear, but always with due regard to decency and good taste. They avoid harassing and intimidating sources. They avoid exaggerating the story for the sake of heightening interest in it. Push beyond a point, exaggeration distorts fact. In the long run, objectivity sells better than sensationalism. Allegation against the action of public servants in performance of their duties should be double checked because rule of service often deny them the right to reply with official material to back them. But when exposure is well founded, it should be bold but not boastful or premature. Suppression of facts under mere pressure is derealization of duty. Statement and facts of non-attributable basis should not be attributed. But anonymity should be allowed to become a cloak for the source to dish out falsehood and calumny, while the right to protect the source should be exercised to full limit of the law. Journalists should caution one another against the sources which mislead under the grab of anonymity. Scenes of personal grief are a delicate matter to handle. They should never be shown bluntly in the name of human interest. Human rights are as important, and privacy of personal feeling counts among them. The journalist's right to information can be used as a powerful instrument for personal gain, which should never be done. In writing about religious controversies, all creeds and communities must be shown equal respect. All parties to such and other controversies deserve equal fair reporting. In reporting crime, particularly the crime of sex and more so crime involving children, utmost care should be taken to see that the report itself does not become a punishment, which may blast a life without a warrant. The alleged criminals and the victim and the witness must be identified with the utmost care, with no implications of caste or religion. Only on strongest ground of public interest should any of these considerations be diluted. Checkbook journalism and paying for information are equal to wages of sin. They should be restored to only in extreme of public interest when no other means of obtaining information are available. Even so, the payments must be disclosed in any relevant legal matter and should never be offered to those involved in related legal matter. Do not mix financial journalism with playing the market. Information should be obtained through the use of clandestine listening and photographing devices, or by interpreting private telephone conversation, or through misrepresentations or subterfuge obtained by any other means. Journalists must not accept favors for themselves or for any member of their family from persons and institutions whose activities they are reporting or commenting upon. Journalists should not seek or accept favors out of turn allotment of accommodation or land or appointment at subsidized rate or similar privileges. Where cases involves professional action of journalists are field at far off places from the professional location of the journalist concerned, the management should provide legal protection so that the threat of such harassment is not used merely to scare the media away from exposing unsavory action of the powerful people. Otherwise, such case against the journalist can become a form of punishment without proof of guilt. Responsibility of Editors Guild. The Guild would reinforce the guidelines by initiating suitable steps to improve the credibility and quality of publications and channels. Whenever it receives instances from its members of publication of misinformation, editorialized coverage of news, malicious use of anonymity by sources, inadequate correction or apology. Guild would encourage its member and other to bring their complaints to the guild rather than taking them to the organization, which are less directly professional. The guild would develop a mechanism to encourage this process. The supportive and corrective role of guild would expand if more and more active editors join the guild. And so guild expands all its activities to all the regions of India. So in this session, we have seen why there's a need of the editorial policy so that a uniformity in the content, layout and style can be maintained. Why is the importance of the Editors Guild so that certain code of practice can be laid out for the journalists to follow, for the editors to follow in order to maintain freedom of press and in order to maintain the status of press as the fourth estate of democracy or the watchdog of society. Thank you so much.